Welcome, dear participant, to this video presentation. The purpose of this video presentation is to understand the audit checklist format and how to really give the 5S audit score in the audit checklist. Of course, later on we have to take the corrective action. How to fill up the corrective action and verify, that will be taking in the next video presentation. But yes, we have now 8 steps to be followed for giving the 5S score. I am sure you have already gone through this chapter, starting with definition of auditing, then phases, then how audit schedule looks like, and sample audit checklist, the definition of correction corrective, and format of layered process audit, and also Kaizen sheet, the NC format. All that will sound very high for you, I am sure. To make it more simplified, I would like to take you through these 8 steps in sequence and make you understand through a practical example, or we can say a case study, so that the giving 5S score becomes an easy learning. That's the whole purpose of this audio and video presentation. Well, 8 steps I'll repeat here. Step number 1, identify the 5S zone / area. Step 2, list all the material, machines, tools, displays, housekeeping, cleaning tools, etc. Step 3, find out the document which displays the min-max levels of items, especially the material. Material can be work in process, can be incoming material, or can be finished goods material. Step 4, refer the 5S questions which are typically asked during the conduct of audit. Step 5, refer 5 assessment criteria for scoring on each S of the 5S. Step 6, refer sample 5S audit check sheet to calculate the aggregate score. Step 7, how to present that score. Typically, radar chart, web chart, and spider chart is used for presenting the 5S score. Of course, having identified issue is not the closure of the 5S issue. We need to really take the correction and corrective actions for the lower scores. I'm sure we cannot take the 8th step in this particular video presentation. We'll take it on the later video which is going to follow in the next exercise to come. Well, now we'll run through a case. The case, I would like to show a small portion of a store. Probably I cannot take the whole thing, but yes, typically in an engineering store we are taking a small portion of the store wherein the nut bolts are stored. Here you can see various sizes of nuts and bolts are kept in the engineering store. Now, this has to be a case for an auditor, that how he prepares an audit checklist for this case and how he awards the score. That is the whole purpose of this example we are going to take. Now, if you look at the 5S audit checklist, many times I think we'll have to refer the sheet and also the scene where we are auditing. So you can correlate all these steps and finally you arrive at a score for this area. Now, before going ahead and scoring and relating with this scene which is there of the store, I would like to explain all the columns and how this audit checklist is arranged. If you look on the column side, serial number is of course serial number, audit checkpoint, oblique the items which are to be audited in that area, permissible quantity. Now why permissible quantity? Because when we want to award the score for sorting, now how do you differentiate sorting? Means you require, you do not require. Do not require is also answered by the quantity, not only the quality or usefulness of the material. Therefore, we need to have a column of permissible quantity. Audit observation, where what is being observed, those things are written down. On the score side, if you look at, we have 8 columns. Column 1, which shows about 1S, means whether the sorting is in place or not. Means the quantity which we require, if we have more quantity, that has to be awarded a score here. And in case of other areas other than item or a material, say for example floor, windows, machines, those are to be treated differently. I will take up while explaining the score for these areas later on. Column 3 of the score is column 2 of the score is about how to score on 2S, means whether the things are in order, means the key criteria is P, place for everything and everything is place. The 3S stands for shining or cleaning. So to what extent the cleaning exists, that will decide the score and to be entered in this column. Now this 1S, 2S, 3S under 4S is quite confusing, I can presume. And my experience says, here it becomes very, very difficult to understand that what are this 4S of 1S, 4S of 2S and 4S of 3S. Do you agree with me? I am sure you will agree with me, and if you do not agree with me, it's a good situation. 4S of 1S means, what is S? 4S is basically standard. Standard means documented. Standard means a level to be achieved. And of course the level to be achieved or a consistency to be achieved is achieved only when we have a guiding document or a label or a signage. So 4S of 1S means, do we have a guidance or a document which suggests that this quantity is permissible from the quantity perspective and this quality is okay quality from the quality perspective. So to answer the 4S of 1S, typical answer is we need to have a control plan or quality plan which clearly says that whether this material is okay or not okay. From the quantity perspective, a minimax level is an answer for standard of 1S, means 4S of 1S. And also it will include a disposal procedure for the items to be disposed, a red tag area and a regular frequency from the area. We will answer for 4S of 1S. Coming to the next column, the 4S of 2S means place for everything and everything is placed. How it is guided? Normally it is guided by labels and the signages and markings or paintings of the location, or sometimes color coding. The 4S of 3S means standards or a guidance document for cleanliness. How it is guided? You would have seen many times these cleaning instructions or the frequencies, and 5W1H of 3S or a cleaning is given in the work instruction and pasted on wall. Many times you would have seen various places, good hospitals and airports also has that cleaning schedule, that who is going to clean, when is going to clean, how is going to clean, etc. Here in this table upper portion we have covered 1S, 2S, 3S and 4S. Now the question is, where is the 5S? Now 5S means what? I am sure you are aware, that is sustain. In sustain, what are the activities we normally do in sustenance? Audit, award, reviews. Typically this is the sequence of doing the sustenance. Now one of the very important point, many times I am sure you would have come across a syndrome. The visitor comes, the cleanliness starts. The visitor goes, cleanliness stops, production starts. Why this happens that we do a great job for a day when visitors come, but we are not able to sustain? Because we are not able to do auditing. Now auditing is to be done by whom? If it is only to be done by auditors or supervisors, I am sure still there is a chance of getting distracted from the levels or the standard we achieve in implementing 5S. So the answer is LPA, we call it as layered process audit. Means all the levels, right from supervisor to MD level or a CEO, all are involved. But when we go higher ups, I am sure there is a challenge of time. So as we go higher in the rank of hierarchy, the time will be taken less from the top in terms of having the frequency. For instance, a supervisor may have a frequency of conducting audit, 5S audit fortnightly, or a COO may have a frequency of a quarter, once in a quarter, or an MD can have once in a year. If this kind of thing is planned, then I think we can award the score on 1 and 2 question, and if it is documented, there are marks. If it is a process of motivating people which drives the 5S implementation, a reward or recognition policy, and if the audits are planned but those are not conducted, of no use. So if the audits are planned through LPA and the very LPA is implemented, so there are scores for that. And also, if the trends are improving or there are celebrations followed after improvements are seen and the trends are improving, so there is also score result. These are the typical questions can be put under the 5S frame. Now why this 5S frame has been separated? Because this will be applicable for the whole area, unlike those 1S, 2S, 3S, 4S which are applicable to item wise only. Now how do we really take the aggregate scores? If we take the score item, here the 1S to 4S we have taken the score up to 80%, and the 5S score we have given a weightage say 20%. Out of 80, how much we have achieved for each of these S can be arrived at. If you look at the 1S part, if you go back upper side on the 1S score, here the total 69 is a score which we have achieved, and out of 90, so the 1S score becomes 69 upon 90, which is 77%. Similarly, we have done for all the essays, and the overall score which comes, average score, is around 45%. This score is considering also the 5th S. But when we look at the 1 to 4S, we can prorata whatever weight we want to give. Normally we recommend a weight of 80% for 1S to 4S and 20% for the sustenance, which is auditing part, or maybe the 5th S part. So that's the explanation of the sample sheet. Now, I think let's go to the the practical case of awarding the score and preparing a checklist. So again, I'll go back to the scene. If you look at the scene of, so this is a zone. Step 1, step 2, items need to be listed. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, all these items are listed. You can see a checklist which has been prepared, and these items are listed here. So drill bit, M16 nut, M20, 45 nut, 40, this M32 hex and M32 lock nut. Now you'll wonder, what is this floor wall? Fixed machines, unwanted items. I'm sure you'll always find these items of any area. These may not be items, but how do we really score? There can be a difficulty of understanding. I will also explain how to score. For instance, now drill bit. What on 1S we are giving example, audit observation is 7S. The permission quantity probably presumed here is say 10. Out of 10, the 7 is available, means it is the maximum quantity is 10 and 7 is available. Therefore, the items are not more in number. Therefore, the 10 marks are given for this particular item. Now 2S, whether this drill bit is at its place, if it is found at its place, designated place, then we give the marks, full marks, which is 2. Now the full marks or part mark, how do we really decide? There is another assessment criteria sheet which has to be referred. This is a typical 5S score criteria. Now if I explain this, here on the left side all the rows are showing various S's. is starting with 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, last. And across the rows, across the columns, across the rows, you have S's, across the columns you have the scores ranging from 0 to 10. 10 would mean that the best situation is available, and 0 will mean the worst situation is available, and of course the intermediate scores are attributed to various situations under various S's. For instance, 1S, if items are unsafe and broken and without red tag and huge items are lying, the score is 0. Whereas if you look at the 10th level, needed quantity stored and the items are placed against the designated area and needed in the red tag area are kept in the red tag area only, and things are clean. So probably the quantity is also in place, the quality is also in place, and the whole system of red tag is in place. Therefore we award 10 marks for the 1S. Similarly for 2S, if the things are in place, but all the things are in place, or a 50% things are in place, accordingly we'll decide. If for example 50%, the score would be here something between from 4 to 6, because 40% if items are kept in location there, then we are rating a rate of 4. And if the items which are 60% are lying on their pre-recognized places, then we would like to have a score of 6. And if the 50% are lying in the place, then the score 5 will come. So a lot of judgment is to be taken by the auditor while seeing the situation, because everything you cannot put in this assessment criteria. But definitely it guides properly, and it helps in reducing the measurement error by the auditor. Means the variation of audit score will be lesser if we use this assessment criteria, and it is highly recommended to be used by initial auditors. Once you have a grip on this subject, I am sure this may not be required that much as it is required for the beginner auditors. Well, so having listed, now when we want to score, we need to assess the criteria. Let's go back to the steps again. So if the add step, what we have covered identification of zone. We have identified a store in a small area. We have listed all the materials in the sample check sheet. Now also min-max levels need to be determined, and those need to be either cross-referred or put in the sheet somewhere. Refer the typical 5S questions. Now while conducting the audit, what questions are normally asked? One auditor should also have the fair idea of what questions being asked, and what are these questions, about which S it relates to is also very important. So typically in 1S, what questions are asked? What is this? Is it useful or not? The purpose of this asking this question, if it is required thing, then we will say it is the compliant to 1S. If it is not required, then it is not compliant. If yes, how much quantity is with? This is a $1 million question. And also this 1S will take to inventory reduction slowly, because unless you have the quantity decided, the 1S is not answered fully. Disposal of red tag items, by whom, when, are floor, machine, walls, windows are in good condition. Questions related to 2S. Basic question is whether things are in place or not. And question related to 3S means things are clean or not. Question related to 4S. Now when it comes to 4S, I think we need to be very clear. This 4S is confused in many literatures also. Sometimes it is called as consistency, sometimes it is called as a documentation, sometimes it is called as a standard, sometimes it is called, but what really the crux of 4S is? We need to have some guiding signage or a document. So crux is standards are written down things, or things which are guiding you properly through signage and color coding, etc. So what is 4S of 1S means? Which document tells you the quantity required? Which document tells you the red tag disposal procedure? Which document tells you the acceptance criteria of the material? This is the typical thing of 4S. Or in case of machines, on floor, which signage tells you this floor is under maintenance, or this maintenance is under breakdown? That becomes the standard for a machine which is not working, a floor which is being repaired. So that is 4S of 1S. Now 4S of 2S, typically a label, typically a marking, typically a painted thing on a machine, on a labor, or on a material, on a trolley. And 4S of 3S, typically a checklist which is pasted on the wall or kept in the file, as the case may be. Under 5S, questions will be whether audits are conducted or people are motivated through awards or a retraining is done, or once the things are achieved, those are celebrated. Those are typical questions under 5S. Now going back forward to the steps. So referring the questions, refer 5S assessment criteria which I already discussed. Refer sample 5S audit check sheet to calculate aggregate score, which I would like to take it again. I explained the score, how to work out. So if you look at in the row first, item wise marks are given at the total, but we are more interested in the marks S wise. 1S, how much 1S score we have in this area, how much score we have on 2S, how much score we have on 3S. So if you look at the column, here it is total marks are 69, and this is numerator. What is denominator is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 10, 9 is 90. So percentage of 1S becomes 69 divided by 90, 77%. So this is the 1S percentage. Similarly for 2S, percentage has been worked out. And finally we have got an aggregate score. In aggregate score, what we have done, this is out of the pro rata 1 to 4S we have considered 80% marks, and for 5S we have considered 20% marks. So therefore the aggregate score is coming as 45% mark. Now this aggregation or weightage can be also decided by the company looking at their own situation, or initially we may also decide that there is no score for 5S as of now. Let's achieve 1 to 4S first, and then we'll have a higher benchmark for injecting the marks for 5S. But my recommendation is that we should always look at 80% is the starting point, and from 80% now whatever we get, then it should be extended to 100%, including the 20% marks for 5th is my recommendation. Going back to the steps, so checklist calculation, I'm sure you're clear. Now, how do you really put on the radar chart or a web chart or a spider chart? There are two ways of putting on the radar chart. One is that we put all the scores as 1S, 2S, and 3S and 5S. Now it looks like a spider, and therefore it is also called as a spider chart. Now if you look at the 1S score here, in audit round 1, 50%. So here 1S arm can be seen, initial audit which is 50%, and 2S score is 60%, so 60%. Then 3S score is 30%, so 30%. For the first audit, the 4S score is 20%. So here it is 4S score is 20%, and 5th score is 5%. Normally that happens because the sustained part is this later part. Initially we have to do 1S, 2S, 3S, 4S, then only 5S can be talked about. So a shaded area under the blue marked pentagon, you can say, is the area which communicates you the level of 5S in the particular area. So audit over audit, if you can see that the shaded area is increasing, or in a way you can say the 5S performance is increasing in that area. So this is a way of presenting the data on 5S. Going back to the sequence, add steps. This is another spider chart wherein what we are looking not S-wise but various area-wise or a zone-wise what is the score, so that we can decide which score is poorer score and which score is a cleaner score, and therefore accordingly we can take either a reward or a corrective action as the case may be. Going forward, let's look at the steps back. So step number 7, I hope step 1 to step 7 we have covered. The step 8, which is taking correction action and corrective action, will be taken in the next video presentation. Thank you very much for learning this.